Internal and external moderation are both essential to the assessment process, and it's really important for us to understand the difference between the two, but more importantly, why are each of these important and what value do they add to the school and to the assessment process. So the first is looking at internal moderation. So this involves people that are involved in the actual assessment process themselves. So an example of this would be when a teacher from a grade moderates another teacher from the same grade's assessment process. External moderation, on the other hand, involves people that are not directly involved in the assessment process. So here that might be when a teacher from another school or institution moderates a teacher's assessment process. So for example, when you go to a departmental moderation, that would be external moderation. When you are doing moderation within the school, that would be internal. Now let's have a look. Why is internal moderation so important? There are a number of reasons. The first is we need to be discussing and clarifying the process that should be followed. We need to collaborate on the expected standard and quality of content and skills taught and learnt. Discussing and clarifying the expected outcomes of the learning and assessment process is essential. It's important for us to come to an agreed judgment of the learner's work. We need to ensure that the assessment is as objective as possible. And of course, continuous collaboration and improvement on the teaching and learning and assessment processes is something that comes from internal moderation. We also want to eliminate the subjectivity and subjective judgments and bias by different assessors. So these are all important, and these are factors that contribute to the importance of internal moderation in a school, and even more importantly, in a grade. So like the example we used, 2 or 3 teachers from the same grade teaching the same subject but moderating each other's work. They are involved in the process. Now, why is external moderation so important? Well, the main aspect is to provide feedback and possible improvements on various aspects, but from an external point of view, to get a different perspective on how you're doing things in a school or in a grade. So the first would be to provide feedback and possible improvements on the standard and possible improvements on the assessment process itself, how we've gone about things, what we've done, and possibly things and ways that we can improve. Then, of course, we also want feedback and improvements on the expected standard, what we're expecting from the learners, the quality of the content, and the skills that we've taught, and what has been learnt. We also want to know whether we can improve in any way on the outcomes of the learning and assessment process. We want to be able to provide feedback on the standard and possible improvements to the objectivity of the assessment process. Sometimes when you're in the actual assessment process yourself, you don't realize whether you're being objective or not. And then, of course, generally to provide an external objective view to the assessment and moderation process. So it's really important to have both internal and external moderation processes to make sure that we balance how we're doing things, and more importantly, that we've got improvements and ways and know how to improve on our processes to improve our overall quality of teaching, learning, and assessment.